not here tonight to blame anyone for having his or her children later in life. I had mine at 39 and 40, and they're perfect. They're wonderful. They're themselves. I can no longer even imagine a world in which I'd have had any other children than the ones I have and adore. I had them late because I married late, and I can't imagine being married to anyone other than the man I married. And so what if I had to wait a long time for him to come along? But all these things that I did, waiting to be married, waiting to have children, were less under my control than you might think and I might think. We make our choices in a world that constrains what we can do. These decisions that we make about when to start a family are personal, but they're also the product of big social forces. And we know that because the same things are happening all over the world. These forces have changed the nature of family life so deeply, and of work life as well, and of many things, that none of us has the power individually to buck the trend. So what we hope to do tonight is rock your world a little by showing you how big these changes are, why they matter, and to try to imagine together a little bit about what can be done. What do we do to make it easier for women to have children and work at the same time?
If you promote too much, if you promote motherhood too much, then you end up messing up women's careers. So you pay them for 5 years out of the labor force, and next thing you know, they've been out of the labor force for 5 years. Right. And even if you guarantee them their job back or whatever, it's not the same. So the alternative is, so you can have, the family-friendly is too generic a term. You can either have sort of pro-motherhood or pro-work. Mm-hmm. So like providing daycare at work is different from providing more paid maternity leave. Mm-hmm. Those have opposite effects on women's careers, but might both increase women's willingness to have children.
We know that brain development is very, very different. I mean, people used to graduate high school and often never move back in again. Adolescence goes regularly to 30 now. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that the brain is plastic and developing, and people do need more nurture.
Well, wait, this is really interesting, because I always thought that the idea that adolescence lasts till 30 is a purely social phenomenon, right? We now have this trough in our 20s where we experiment, we start our careers, we hang out, we hook up, but we don't marry until we're in our 30s. But you're saying that's actually a developmental issue.
I believe it's a developmental issue. I think a lot of parents feel like their children should be treated like they were at 18. You should be on your own, you should be independent. But I think that young people require much more nurture than they did several generations ago. And they benefit from that greater period of nurture. And maybe that's part of the reason why we also see this delayed parenting.
It's hard to tell, if we have fewer children and devote more resources to them, either society or also within families. You have the parents at the playground who are like 1 inch from their their child the whole time. You could imagine that if your children are raised that way, it's going to take them a little bit longer to develop independence.
I mean, a man makes sperm. That sperm fertilizes an egg. Thinking of the man as very disconnected from the sperm. 10 years later, when I was studying schizophrenia, I saw that there was a common cluster of cases, and those common clusters of cases had no family history. They were sporadic. My view was, whatever is causing these must be very frequent in the population. And the idea came, let's look and see, is father's age a risk factor for schizophrenia? And you would think that that had been done already. Certainly everything in the world had been looked at for psychiatric diseases. Certainly mother's variables had been very, very well studied, but had never been examined whether or not father's age was a risk factor. And the results were overwhelming that it was, that it strongly increased the risk for the disease. If a woman is pregnant, she should be taking multivitamins. If the man is planning that his partner be pregnant, he should be on the multivitamins. He's making the sperm. Those are the cells that are actively dividing. So some of this is, my view, is a new focus on the health and the importance of men.